This chair's touching my leg.
How was your leg even getting that little hole?
I have small legs.
I hope your legs aren't that big.
Alright, y'all already got your notes going and you're ready, right? Important stuff there is what we're using today. And then, last unit of this, last list of the spread units. When we summed up yesterday at the end, I asked you what inverse triggered in your brain, and the most common answer I heard all day long was opposite, and that's a good answer. So the first step here is to switch the variables. So you're going to put the variables in the opposite place. That'll create a new equation, and then you'll solve it for y, and that's the inverse of the function. Fabulous Thursdays. They got what we need on that. Ready to try a couple? Almost. Okay. I'm trying to. It's all about your choices. I'm trying to make it a better one.
That's what I'm hoping.
Some of my brother said this fine.
What was that looking for?
I was thinking about what you were saying.
True stuff.
Yeah, but can I take a choice and like take a nap? I think that would
That would be the choice to fail today.
I mean, what's one day? Yeah.
Can't be that bad, right? Like, I really need to.
No, that's a crummy attitude.
I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
don't
It's a
live,
crummy
don't
day.
live by it. Can't be that bad. Learn that the hard way. I got anxious.
And then, like, I don't know where we're going. There's only a table in front
So
of
we
me.
could be safe.
Well, we finished pretty quickly, but then I had to drag it out because some Mr. Bobby was in here.
Yeah, he's
Casey, I think we're going Saturday at 7. And I think you, Trevor, and Raven are riding.
He works with the co-op, and so
Yeah,
his job is to.
Because I don't think you can fit in that truck. The middle seat's about that big.
So last he's been here before, but it was during the third period.
Yeah, but you can't drive it. Yeah, I mean, y'all can check your truck. I don't care.
Yeah, he taught Benton for a while.
Where are you going?
Don't tell her. Don't tell her.
Alright,
Okay, guys.
let's put this to work.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I know that would be really awkward. Well, who don't know that?
I think there's 8 going. All the boys, Trevor and Raven.
Nope.
Okay, listen up so you know what my train of thought is. This unit that we're in right now is radical functions. So that means it's either got a square root, a cube root, something along those lines, or it has a fraction exponent that you can rewrite with a radical using your power over root tool. But here I gave you a linear equation. So why did I backtrack to linear? Well, we're just learning to do inverse, so I want to do inverse first off on something a lot more simple. and then we'll get it to the radical once we get the steps down. There's just 2 steps. You copied them down on the previous page. So we'll practice those on something simple and then work our way up into the radical. Okay? So here's just a good old line, 4x plus 7, that's mx plus b form. First thing on the 2-step process I wrote was switch the variables. But there might need to be a preliminary step for some of you that get confused easy. Some of us, not everybody, but some of us sometimes forget about that f of x being the same as y. So that might be a preliminary step for some of us, is to remember that that's a y. Okay, but once we got that down, step 1, switch the variables. So just like it sounds, instead of y equals, I'm flipping these two, so I'm going to write x equals. And what's x going to equal? 4y. Very good, plus 7. So that was step 1. Everybody good on step 1?
Wait, what's...
We just switch the y and the x. Switch the variables.
I understand that, but why couldn't we just solve it with x? Because we're solving
I don't understand your question, sweetie.
I don't understand. Just continue.
Okay, let me. I did not say this. I don't think. Let me throw this out at the beginning. The directions for this problem say find the inverse. Okay, and so that's then why we go to this switch the variables stuff that we're doing. That's how you find the inverse. All right, so now we've got our new equation. Step 2 says solve it for y. So we need to isolate the y, get the y all by itself. So first thing we need to do would be to get rid of that plus 7. How do you get rid of a plus 7?
Subtract it.
Yep. So it gets me x minus 7 is equal to 4y. I've almost got the y all by
I
itself.
understand now.
Good.
Then divide by 4 both sides.
Divide by 4 on everything. So over there it'll cancel out. I'll just have y equals. And I'm going to leave this like that. But let's say it's a bright and early Saturday morning one time and I'm sitting there taking ACT and I do all that and I know I got it right and I look and there's not a choice that says that. No, you don't cry. You think about what would be another way to write that answer. No. If you're dividing the whole thing by 4,
It was funny.
that means the x has to get divided by 4 and the 7 has to get divided by 4. So that's the same answer there, right, in a different form. Here's another thing. Dividing x by 4 is the same as taking 1/4 of x. Very good, Grant. So all 3 of these answers are equivalents. They just are written in different forms. Okay? Now, for me, on test Wednesday, I would stop here just because we got there first. It's correct. You're done. But I'm just trying to get you to see that there's sometimes more than one way to write an answer. You may take a college algebra class and your teacher demands you write it that way or you're getting an F. So write it that way. It's not the end of the world, right? Come on, Chloe. I'll give you a knuckle sandwich in a minute. The Bella got funny. She started cracking up.
Sort of be quiet.
That's a good response. Cracking up. Alright, so not really very hard. 2 steps. Switch variables, solve for y. Let's try again. Whoop.
That's true. I took a minute to process. My brain's like
I
real slow
know, that was a
today.
good thing.
I was like,
This one we're
Oh.
finding inverse.
Yes, find the inverse. I'm not going to send you to your boards, but I do want you to try this one on your own. Find the inverse. F of x equals 5x minus 2. So right there on your note paper, see if you can find the inverse of that. Go.
I didn't write the 2 down, so I just saw without the 2.
Well, all you got to do is stick a plus 2, right? Because it's a minus 2, so to move it, you would add it. What a scare. Something wrong with you.
I'm tired.
How many ways do we have to write it, or can we just leave it?
You can stop.
Why are you clapping? You don't even know if you got it right or not. You could be wrong.
Chloe's never wrong.
What's wrong?
It seems so much easier.
What's wrong?
I said you come here. What's wrong? It is a joke. It is a joke.
Yep. Good job.
Dude, I would have been going crazy.
It was ugly. I looked ugly, and I. It was,
No, like the teeth was gone.
no, because it was like it was not the color of my teeth. It was so obvious. It was just ugly.
Do you still have the piece in the tooth?
Okay, so my
I would have
first
saved
it.
step is to
That's
switch
weird.
the variables.
Well, they took it up.
So, if I'm told to write the inverse of the function, first thing I'm going to do is switch those variables. So I'm going to
X
write
equals 5y minus 2.
exactly what Chloe said, x equals 5y minus 2. So now all I'm doing here, inverse, I'm undoing the y, solving for y. It's got 2 being subtracted. So add a kid, we're adding. So we got x plus 2 is equal to 5y. I've almost got the y by itself. Divide. So y equals x plus 2 divided by 5. Now I'm fixing to introduce you to
Oh
this.
dang! I put X. Why is that Y?
You switch it, and you're telling me I'm wrong.
Well, technically,
For why?
Switch the variables, solve for y. So we need to end up with y equals. Alright, now I'm going to show you a new symbol. Anybody remember the symbol for inverse? Have you ever heard of it? Seen it before?
Maybe.
Alright, up here in the, I think you when I tell it to you, you'll remember.
Wait,
Up here in the original function, we were at f of x. So the inverse of that is f to the negative 1 of x.
Oh.
Oh,
I've seen that one.
Mhm. Anytime they write something with a negative 1 power like that, that means inverse. Okay. Now, am I going to require you to do that? No, I'm good with this answer down here. But like all y'all just said, you've seen that negative 1 before. Now you know why. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
I'm taking the ACT sometime.
I'm taking it in February at Bryant. No one's gonna be there, and I'm gonna cry.
No one's gonna be there.
Well, I mean, people are gonna be there, but like it's not here because they're not having here.
She got a box.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. I get a hanger. I get a hanger.
Okay. So I told you we started off out with the linear ones and we were working our way up. So here we've got a quadratic one. So this quadratic one, it's to the second power. This is going to get us more into the radical stuff because we know quadratics and square roots, they cancel each other out, right? Square root cancels out squared. So this is going to get us into the radical stuff. Steps are still the same. Switch the variables. So I'm going to go ahead and take that f of x out. Switch the variables. Okay, so when you switch these, it's still just x equals y, but then what's on that y over here? Good job. Okay, you got your variables switched, okie dokie. Now we switched variables, step 1, so step 2, we're solving for y.
So add 1.
Yes, sir, read.
So x plus 1 equals y squared. Would you square the 1?
Okay, now we need to undo a squared,
So you square
so
root
we
both sides.
square root both
Keep
sides.
the square root for the answer.
Yes.
Yes, so we're going to have, good, check this out, we're going to have y equals, because we square rooted it, positive or negative,
Oh, I didn't do it right.
square root of x plus 1. Why did I put the positive or negative?
Because it can be either.
It can be either.
Anytime you square roots, you got to do positive, negative.
I
It can be either.
almost got it right.
But if you just forgot that positive, negative, you won't forget it again. Hey Kevin, how's it going today?
Look,
Eating chicken
that's your
wings?
line. The table.
It's kind of weird because I can cross
Hey,
it.
thank you to my house. Thank my chickens.
Oh, you have chickens, Miss Wright?
Yeah.
Have you ever had anything get in them?
Yeah.
What was it, you know?
Had raccoons and possums and a fox.
I know someone one time there was a hawk in their chicken pen and they killed it with the shotgun and the shotgun broke their arm. It was an old woman. It was Easton Bailey's grandma. It broke her shoulder.
She's so confused. Anything else?
What is she supposed to kill it with?
Cave.
No, Lynn hurt her before she could kill it. She's old. She's not like quick. I mean, she can't get a stick and kill it. A 410 is small. Yeah, she broke her arm. 16 gauge turkey load. 410s don't even kick, dude. When he walked in, he got hot, didn't he?
No, it's hot whenever I want.
Now I'm cold.
Okay, here we go. Radical stuff.
What are you doing?
I'm taking
Stay with me, we're getting there. F of x is equal to 4x cubed minus 1. Directions are the same. Find the inverse.
Tripping over here.
Find the inverse. So first thing for some of you to realize is that f of x is the same as y. You're probably the majority of y'all are going to skip that step, but I'm writing it for the few of us that can't skip it. So now we switch the variables, and all that switches is the y and the x. The 4 and the cubed will stay over there. So we'll write x equals 4y cubed minus 1.
So add the 1.
Okay, now we're ready to start solving for y. And when we do that, remember your order of operations when you're solving go in opposite order. So we do get rid of that minus 1 first, like Mr. Witherspoon said. That x plus 1 is equal to 4y cubed. What would be our next step? Good, CJ. We're going to divide both sides by 4.
Then cube everything.
Close. I know what you, yep. I knew what you meant on that, Grant, and Laney Joe helped you out. Now we need to undo the cubed. Cube root undoes the cube, so we're going to cube root both sides. So with the y cubed, when you cube root it, just cancels out and you got a y. So when I cube root the other side, there's the ring.
Hey.
I'm just going to leave all that.
I'm not going outside.
Hey, I don't know what the cube root of all that is, so I'm just going to leave all that underneath the cube root. Now, I didn't put a plus minus sign. Did I forget it, or did I do it right?
Cube root, so you don't have to have.
Very good. Cube root gets the sign that it is, so you don't
What if
plus
you did put
minus.
plus minus?
Only time you plus minus is if the root's an even. Do what, sir?
So what if I did put plus minus? Would it be
20
wrong?
lashes with a wet noodle.
Got him.
It is technically wrong. I don't know. It just depends on what kind of
I mean, it's half.
what kind of grade my move my pen's in when I grade it. Sometimes my pen is harsh. Sometimes
Say that.
Why do you have to talk to me every time I say something?
I thought you said that to me.
No.
Oh, because I said that.
For just a few of them. Mainly the same.
When it rains, it pours.
Alright.
Are you home? Well, you're in shorts.
That rain didn't last long.
It's kind of weird to take your shirt off.
It's not like I'm sitting here baking.
Oh, kind of are.
Why?
You kind of
People
are.
wear hoodies without shirts under them all the time. This is literally no different.
Alright, how about
Take your shirt off.
we finish up with this one? Shh. Hey, I got f of x. Y'all be quiet. Shh. F of x is equal to 5 times the square root of x minus 2. And the directions say to write the inverse. I'm going to let you try this one before I tell you and see how we do.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Oh my goodness, bless my soul. There goes all my
That was fun.
Wait, so how do you get rid of the square root?
Well, I don't know. I wonder.
You square it.
Hey.
Square root of what though?
All that's under the square root.
So, would I start with the 5 or the 2?
No, you would divide first on
Divide
this
by
one.
5?
Yes. And that's because the 5 is not underneath the radical. That's tricky.
So you divide by 5, but then you have to square it before you can do anything.
Yes. Because that 2 is underneath the radical, this is a weird instance where you'll save it for last.
So be parentheses and square.
Christmas savings.
I think it's yeah, I stapled it.
square this or
Well, when you squared that side, it just canceled the square root out. So you don't have a square over there anymore, but you got to square the other side.
this square?
And I don't have to go to the top and the bottom.
Okay. And then minus 2?
No.
Plus 2.
Yes.
And that puts y by 2.
Close.
I think I got it. You can look.
I don't know how
Let's
someone goes to
look.
bed
We
in
got
that
some
car.
confusion. Let's look here. We ready? Shh. Check out. See how you did. I knew when I let you try this one was the trickiest one, but I got some confidence in you that you can do it. Like y'all were already asking, I told you earlier, you undo it by doing backwards order of operations, and so you think, well, we need to add the 2 first, but this one's a weird one because that 2 is underneath the radical. So that's not going to come until last in this scenario because it's a little bit of a different problem. The 5 is what you're going to get rid of first. So it's kind of like isolate the radical, get rid of the radical, then isolate the variable. Okay, so that's my thought process here. So when we divide by 5, because it's being multiplied by 5, that's just going to give me y divided by 5. Over here the 5's cancel out, is equal to the square root of x minus 2. Oh, I didn't switch the variables. I'm with you now. I'm with you now. I'm with you now. I was wondering why y'all were confused. My bad. I'll get my act together eventually. There you go. That's what you had, right? Am I with you now? Okay, that was my bad. You're good. You're good.
It's a connection.
All right, now that whole right side where we're trying to get, shh, Marshall, listen, that whole right side where we're trying to get the y by itself is underneath the radical. So we need to get rid of a square root. We do that by squaring. So over here, when I square the square root, it just cancels out and leaves me with y minus 2. Now check this left side out. See where my mouse is going crazy? When I square this side, that means I have to square the numerator and the denominator. Okay, that's where some of you went wrong at. So that's going to make it be x squared over 25. Don't forget that. Square the top and the bottom if you got a fraction. Okay? Now, you mathematical geniuses in training only have one step left. Add the 2. Where's the 2 going to get added? Ooh. How about that? I like it. I like it a lot.
Wait.
Or you should square 5.
That's a common mistake, but you won't forget it again. Did you get it right, G-Dub?
I think I got it down.
I had those.
Well, we gotta get someone else to go. You should go.
She's not. She's
We
sitting
got
right
7.
here in
We
the
need
math
8.
class. No.
Because we're doing teams. We actually
That's
need
a good
another.
idea. I mean, I'll
All right.
I don't care.
So, tomorrow, I'm going to have your study guide for you. You're going to work on it like it's
Study
test.
guide. What?
Monday, we'll go over what we need to on the study guide. Tuesday, we won't do anything new. It'll be like study hall day because people will be going different places to do sophomore interim testing and all that. Then Wednesday, we'll take our radical functions test.
Sounds good.
Sounds fabulous, Chloe. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So, y'all's wish was granted.
So that's
9:30.